Hey everyone. In honor of the 2019 statistics now being available on penandchase.com, I wanted to show our new users or anyone who wants a refresher what it really means to join an auto league, a 2019 auto league specifically, and what the different options are. So I want to quickly point out that I'm already logged in here in the upper right. You can see that I'm logged in. If you're not logged in, that's where you would do it. Or if you haven't created an account, that's also where you can click create an account. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump to join leagues. So this button right here takes me to this page, and I get an alert at the top that shows that I'm currently in 12 out of 50 possible leagues. Now, the reason I can join up to 50 leagues is because I'm currently an active donor to the site. Well, I actually built the site, so I'm always a donor. But if you had donated, you get a week of donor status for every dollar you've donated. So if you're a current active donor, you're going to see that you can join up to 50. If not, you can join up to 20 at any one time. And we have our different options here. So automated leagues, custom leagues, private leagues, etc. You could also be a commissioner of your own league. I'm not going to get into any of that right now. I'm just going to jump to the auto league. So auto leagues are the leagues that run on autopilot. There is no official commissioner or anything like that. They all follow the same basic rules. They're 12-team leagues, etc. So I'm going to click on See Leagues, and I'm now on the Join Auto League list. Now this is a pretty long, overwhelming list. It shows all the open auto leagues. Actually, it doesn't even show all of them. It's only showing a subset. So that's pretty dizzying as I scroll down the page there. So these filters come in really handy. And here you can kind of select the different leagues that you want to look at. So by default, it's showing all the different options. You can filter by keepers and non-keepers. What that means is in auto leagues, you can keep up to 4 players if you're playing in a keeper league from season to season. And I won't get into the details of that on this particular demo here. Types of leagues is what I'm interested in the most because I'm trying to filter by best of 2019. So best of 2019 is a brand new option as of today, thanks to the 2019 stats now being available on the site. I also want to point out that if you look down here at the bottom of this drop down, it says other years. So if I click that, it's going to give you any of the still open best of 2018, as well as any other single season years that are available. So you can see this auto league has best of 2009. There's another 2018. Scrolling down here, there's a best of 2006 that's open, a best of 2010. So that's how you find other single season years. But what I'm interested in right now are the best of 2019 leagues. So I can see right now that there are 4 of those. Oh, actually, there's more than that. There's 5 open right now. I quickly want to point out here in the right column that the draft type is one of the more interesting things you're going to want to keep an eye on here. So there are 2 different draft types in a typical auto league. There's what we call the daily draft, and there is the quick draft. So what do those mean? The daily draft is more like a traditional snake draft where you will have very refined control over your team. Every day, every 8 hours, another round will run. So you will be ranking players, and every 8 hours, you'll get a new player, and then you'll get to re-rank. And so you have really refined control over what your roster ultimately winds up looking like. If I scroll down at the bottom here, I can see that there's one quick draft open for 2019. And what is the quick draft? So the quick draft is a way to very quickly draft your entire roster, and you don't have to worry about any sort of longer extended draft process. You draft your roster and you're ready to go once the league is full. The downside to the quick draft is that the quick draft offers you certain subsets of players for each position, and so you're limited in terms of who you're going to have access to draft. You have to make choices based on what's presented to you. I'm going to quickly show you both options here. I also want to point out that the draft type filter up here allows you to filter out the list. So for example, if you are interested in quick draft only, you can select that, and now you see all I see right now is the one best of 2019 quick draft league that's available, And likewise, if I wanted to see daily drafts only, I can do that, and I can see that there are currently 4 daily drafts open. You want to keep an eye on teams available as well. So this league has 3 teams available, so that's going to be the closest to filling up right there. So that'll take less time for the league to actually fill and get started. Some of these leagues that have a lot of teams available can take quite a long time to get rolling. If I go to the Quick Draft League, it looks like there are 3 teams available there as well. So this one I would expect is going to get started pretty quickly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and join the league. I'm going to join the Quick Draft first, so I'll show you how that works. And once I join the league, into the home page, and I see these 2 yellow highlighted links which indicate that I'm a part of the league, and I have some options here. And the first option, the first thing I want to do obviously is draft my team. So I click on that, and now this takes me to the quick draft process. And how this process works, you can see my current pick is starting pitcher number 1, and I'm offered these 6 pitchers. And here are all their statistics. And so you can see starting pitcher number 1, you're typically offered among the best pitchers in the league, and then the pitchers will gradually get worse as you go through the draft. A similar thing happens with position players, although it's a little more complex when you get into the position player. It kind of fluctuates back and forth. This video is not intended to go through the entire quick draft process and be an analysis of the quick draft process, so I'm not going to go through the whole thing right here, but I do just want to show you that before you pick a player, you could click these little arrows next to a player, and it'll bring up a menu, and you now have the option to do a little more analysis on this player before you draft him. You could see his history, you could compare him across leagues. Now, I do want to point out that in 2019 leagues, these first 2 links are unfortunately going to be not valuable at all, because these are the first 2019 leagues that are getting started. So this particular player, all the players have no league history with 2019 stats. You cannot compare them across any other 2019 leagues because there haven't been any leagues yet. So unfortunately, these 2 links are pretty unhelpful in the case of a best of 2019 that's just getting started. But in a few months from now, those would be valuable. You could compare how this player is performing in other 2019 leagues across the website, and that's pretty helpful. I do want to point out that you might see certain links on my view here, because I'm technically the commissioner of all auto leagues, so you're going to see some things that you won't have access to. So for example, if I bring up that menu again, this edit player, retire player, delete player, these are not things that will show up for you. Those are only things that a commissioner can do. So that's why you're seeing some of those extra links there. When you're ready to pick your player, and being a White Sox fan myself, even though this is not the White Sox version of Chris Sale, it's of course Chris Sale with the Red Sox, but I'm going to go ahead and draft him. So he's going to be my number 1 pick, my number 1 pitcher, and to draft him, I just click on his name, and that's going to take me to pitcher number 2. And so you'll see down at the bottom here, it's going to keep track of who I've drafted. So that's very handy to kind of know who all is on my roster and what positions I need to fill. And you're going to go through this position by position. You can see now, starting pitcher number 2, the stats are going to get slightly worse. The ranks here, so this column lets you know what the pitcher is ranked relative to all the other players in the league. Rank is just a way to give you an idea of what this player's stats might mean in comparison to the other players across the league. But what you really want to be paying attention to is their real life statistics, because that's what the sim uses to generate the results here. So you're going to go through and build your team one by one. Now I'm on to starting pitcher number 3, and this is going to go on for 23 players. You're going to end up with 5 starters, 5 relievers, and 13 position players. And then the season will get started, and from there you can fill out your roster even further. But again, I'm not going to get into all the details of that. I'm just showing you how to get into 2019 leagues and how to begin the draft process. So what I want to do now is I'm going to go back to Join Leagues, and I'm going to go back to the Auto League list. I'm going to filter again by 2019. And this time, I want to show you a daily draft. So I'm going to go ahead and filter by daily draft. I'm going to go to this league, which has the 3 teams available, because I know that means this league is likely to fill up faster. In daily drafts, it doesn't matter what order you enter the league, because everyone's going to draft at the same time. In quick drafts, it's a little different. If you're one of the last teams to draft, you're going to probably have a slightly lesser pool of talent, but the quick draft is really designed to try to keep good players around for every team. So whether you enter number 1 or whether you enter number 12, you're to draft some good players. Understandably, it's sometimes more advantageous to be one of the early teams in a quick draft. It's hard to prevent that entirely, but that's just the way it works. And the quick draft is a whole nother video in itself that could go on and on and on. So I'll save that for another time. But I want to join this this daily draft here, and it's again best of 2019. And again, I've got a draft my team link. And now it's taken me to a very different page because this is a daily draft league. So it explains here the rules of the daily draft. You're able to rank players, and every 8 hours you're going to get another player. But one thing I want to point out is there are pretty strict limits in terms of who you can draft. So this yellow box here is pretty important. It lets you know that you can only draft 5 starters, 5 relievers, 13 offensive players, and then no more than 2 of catcher, first base, second base, third base, shortstop, and no more than 5 outfielders. And so that's something to keep in mind as you go through the daily draft because, for example, if you've ranked a bunch of catchers and you've already drafted a couple, you're not going to get that third catcher. So you may be surprised that the computer is ignoring your rankings, and that's why it's doing that. So anyway, this is just a description here, and then the next thing you want to do is click on Rank My Players Now. And now you're going to the Rank Players for Supplemental Draft page, and this is where you're going to rank your players for the daily draft. And so one thing to note here is that the draft order is not revealed until after the first round. So what you want to do when you start a daily draft is you want to make sure you rank at least 12 players, because you could wind up being the first pick or you could wind up being the 12th pick. So you want to make sure that when you do some rankings, you're doing at least 12. You probably want to do more than that because that would ensure that if by chance you didn't get to the computer in between those 8 hours, by the time round 2 happens, you'll still have some players ranked and you could still get a player that you want rather than have the computer pick for you. In the daily draft, every 8 hours, everyone gets a player. Whether you've ranked them or not, you're going to get someone. So just to kind of run through this page here, you can see that this indicates the team. So when I join this league, I am assigned a team. The Detroit Psychos, so that's a team that some other owner used to have, and that's what they named them. And I'll quickly show you at the end of this demo how I can change that. But for now, that's my team name. And I can filter this list here. So let's say, I want to rank some starting pitchers for my first pick. So I filter it by starters, and you can see now I've got all the starters. They're sorted by default by rank. So Verlander is considered, based on his stats, the best pitcher in the 2019 league. But again, you want to make your own assessments based on the stats that you're looking at. Verlander with that 0.8 WHIP and 5.5 hits per 9, though, that's pretty impressive, and no surprise that he's considered the best pitcher in the 2019 pool of players. Now, if you want to do this a little quicker, like you can click on names and you could click up to 10 and you could add them to the list in that way. You can also do this quick rank players by stats, and that takes you to a different page here where you could quickly add players. So let's say, for example, I definitely want a starting pitcher for my first pick. So I'm going to rank 12 starting pitchers, and I'm going to sort them by the rank. And then my secondary sort option, you could kind of pick whatever you want. Let's say strikeouts per 9 is important to me. So what I'm going to say is I'm going to say I want the top 12 pitchers by rank. I'm going to say get players, and then I scroll down and I've got, here is the list of 12 players that would be added to my draft list based on the criteria. And once I click add to my list, I'm taken back to the rank players for supplemental draft page, and you can see now at the bottom of the page here, I've got this list of players, and this is my draft list. So I can move these guys around if I want to. You can quickly change order. You could delete someone from this list, or you could use this little target button, and this button allows you to, let's say Clayton Kershaw, I wanted to make him number 1, but I wanted to make Verlander number 2. I want to put Kershaw at the top of the list and bump everyone down. That's when you want to use this little target, and you could say, choose which position. I want him number 1. I'm going to insert him number 1, and it'll reorder my list, and now I've got Kershaw 1 and Verlander 2. If I did a swap, then that would mean that, let's say I wanted Strasburger number 1. If I did a swap with Kershaw, that means Kershaw is going to drop to number 8, and that's not what I want in that case. So a lot of different options for ordering your list here. And this would be my list of 12 players that I'm going to draft number 1. So when the league fills, you'll get an email notification or a text if you're signed up for text or emails, and the draft will start, and you'll get a notification that a round has been run, and you'll come back here and you'll see which player you got, and then you can come back and reorder. I want to point out that if you go to the My Team link in the navigation here when you're on your league page, you can quickly jump to the rank draftees. So if you click this rank draftees link, you're going to quickly go back to your list of draftees for the daily draft. And I also wanted to point out again, since I inherited this team, this is the team name and logo and ballpark that I inherited. So you definitely are going to want to change that and customize it for yourself. There's a couple ways to do that. So this little settings icon jumps you to the edit team details. You also have your manage my team box over on the right here, and there's an edit team details option right there as well. So those are two different ways basically to get to the same thing. So I go to edit team details, and let's say I'm going to pick a new logo for my team here. I'm going to call myself the Crab. So I'm going to click on the Crab, and it says your logo's been updated. Now I'm the Crabs. I'm going to play in Carolina. I'm going to be the Carolina Crabs. My stadium will be really generic, the ballpark. And right now, I don't want any boosts or disadvantage. I'm just going to have a really generic park. You can see when I change my dimensions here, the image changes, and the image just kind of gives you an idea of what settings you have for your park. And so right now, I want it to be just very generic and normal because I don't know the makeup of my team yet. If I wind up drafting a bunch of power lefties, I may want to pull the porch in for the left-handed hitters. And that's a really important strategy throughout Pen and Chase. You'll see some of the best owners on Pen and Chase use this very efficiently and effectively. They load their roster with a particular type of hitter, and then they set their ballpark to really take advantage of that. It's something you got to be careful with because when you pull those fences in, you're going to do damage to your own pitching staff. But it's a strategy that a lot of longtime Pen and Chase users have used very effectively. So I submit my changes, and I can return to my team page, and now here I am. I'm now the Carolina Crabs. And I'm ready to engage in a daily draft. So I hope this was a beneficial spin through the site and what it's like to join an auto league, what it's like to take part in both the quick draft and the daily draft. And I hope everyone is excited to start playing in some best of 2019 leagues on penandchase.com.